Islam TV.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dear viewer of Salam TV, we welcome you to today's episode of the Alhidaadayah show, where we look at Islam and science, science in Islam, how is it affecting us, and as Muslims, what should be our stake in the appreciation and implementation of scientific discoveries that we have currently. My name is Muhammad Sekalala, your host for the show, and today is the 20th of May 2024, which corresponds to the 12th of Dhul Qa'dah, the 11th month of the Islamic calendar. So those that are in the habit of fasting, we have a cocktail of days to fast. We'll start today until Thursday, because today being a Monday, you have the Sunnah Monday fasting. The white days start tomorrow up to Thursday, and then mashallah. So we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enables us all to continuously improve in our acts of worship. Back to our topic, the show, we have Islam and science as the show, but we are going to be looking at cloning technologies. What does Islam say about them? As Muslims, how do we use the cloning technologies? Where are they applicable? Where are they accepted? And where are they stopped from being used? So to help us digest and understand this aspect of cloning technologies and Islam, we are joined by Brother Sekalema Hamza, who is a lecturer at the Islamic University in Uganda. He has been a regular on the show, though we have had a break where we've been having a series of topics where we've not been having him. But Alhamdulillah, he's back to share with us. So Brother Hamza, please say salam to the viewers.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity to share knowledge,
mashallah, and
to discuss issues that pertain to our religion, especially issues of contemporary nature.
Now, thank you very much. So that is Brother Sekalema Hamza for you. He's a computer scientist, but with a keen interest in science and technology. So for starters, Mr. Sekalema, when you talk about cloning technologies, what should the viewer out there understand? I'm talking to the people in the ghettos, the people who are deep there in Arua, West Nile, Karamoja, who are viewing us, and they don't seem to understand these terminologies. In the layman's understanding and the technical aspects, what is cloning?
Alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala rasulillah. So when we are looking at controversial technologies, actually, because cloning is just one technology, but we shall look at others as time goes by. Technologies that do exist, they have some benefits, but ultimately the Sharia people do have some reservations. So we are covering that kind of theme for the next part,
inshallah. So cloning, what should the viewer, the layman out there appreciate by cloning?
Now cloning, before we go to explain this concept of cloning,
yes please,
we need to first talk just a bit about the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed his way of repeating his creation.
Yes.
Because among the sifat that Allah talks about and he praises himself with is the issue of yabda khalqa thumma yu'iduhu, meaning he starts a creation, then he multiplies it, because those are two distinct abilities. You can, for example, be able to make a car,
okay,
but if someone asks you to repeat some 5 other cars, you get stuck.
You get stuck, yes.
You're able to create this first one, but you are now at that, you can't produce anymore. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises himself with the ability to start a creation,
yes,
then to multiply it. And he makes the multiplication very simple for himself. That's the other thing which Allah teaches us, we in the manufacturing area.
Okay.
Making what is difficult easy through just simple procedures. For example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is repeating a creation, he packages all the information needed to come up with that creation in just one small microscopic thing called a cell.
A cell, yes.
So that cell has all the information needed to come up with the whole creature, be it as large as a dinosaur, or as large as an elephant, or as small as a rat or anything.
A rat or anything.
So therefore, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, he later created Hawa.
Hawa, yes.
And with the two of them, he now started his multiplication
of creatures.
And the multiplication is simply combine genetic material from the man side and the woman side, then you create a cell, then start to multiply that cell.
Okay. So that is the concept of creation.
So that is how Allah has enabled the creation to multiply. And that formula is for nearly all the creatures that produce. Of course, the methods of how the production is actually done can differ. We grow inside our mother's wombs. The kangaroos, they have pouches where the young one grows. The fish lay eggs. Each one has their own way of finally getting the product out. But ultimately, they are all moving with the same formula. Combine two materials, create a cell, multiply the cell, create a whole creature using what we call DNA. So that's why the DNA of each individual among us differs from another. That's why when we are investigating parenthood, we rely on that DNA.
The DNA, yes.
Because it is an unmistakable structure that can't be associated with more than one individual. So the DNA of Sekalala will be available within his child. So once I find samples of Sekalala's DNA in another person, I am 100% sure that that person is a descendant of Sekalala. Now when it comes to cloning, so that's the natural way. We essentially combine these two cells coming from these two individuals, we create one, it multiplies itself, and we get a creature out of it. That's how Allah has made the multiplication very simple. Now with the cloning, what the human beings are doing is that Allah has given them the knowledge to artificially start that process.
So artificial knowledge.
Because the natural way is the animals have either they have sex or they simply mate. Because in some cases, some animals, like for example frogs, they may not necessarily have sex. The female simply produces the eggs, while at the same time the male is fertilizing them as they move out. So in that case, for them they don't need to fuse. This one just produces the eggs, the other one fertilizes them as they move out. So there are many methods. So here we are artificially creating this cell that multiplies itself. Because for now, what happens when two chromosome delivering systems come together? For example, I have the sperm, I have the ovum, they come together. Usually we don't have any participation in what finally occurs there when these two come together. So in this issue of cloning, we are principally saying we now participate in defining how this cell that is going to multiply itself should be like.
So in other words, you're determining artificially the makeup of the cell.
So how do I determine it? I pick what is called a somatic cell. Somatic cells are all over our body. There are just very few parts of the body that don't have what we call somatic cells, that have the two elements. They are both the male and female.
Okay.
Chromosomes. So we pick a cell from maybe any part of your body. Then we get another cell. We remove the nucleus from there. Here we do have an illustration that should give us
somatic stem cells in the body.
A schematic of what we are saying. So those ones come from all over the place. You can see the entire body is full of these cells, so they are not very difficult to get.
Yeah, I can see, yes.
So cells of the heart, the skin, the tooth, all of those, we can pick any cell from there and it will qualify to start our cloning process.
So any part of the body can be picked?
Apart from just very few, the reproductive cells, like the sperm. So then they have one side, they don't have both.
Okay.
So the rest of the body, the cells are complete. They have both the male and female side.
So for the reproductive, it is a defined gender, male or female.
So the sperm does not contain content which is in the ovum. That's why for you to start the generation of a human being, you need these two to fuse. So if they don't fuse, the sperm alone can't create a whole human being, and the ovum alone also can't create a whole human being. So once we pick one of those somatic cells, which are all over the body like we have said, we now go ahead and get another cell
from a different
different environment. We remove the nucleus, because the nucleus is what makes this cell alive. It is like some kind of engine.
Yes.
So I get my somatic cell from Sekalala. So I want to clone Sekalala.
Yes, please.
So I pick that somatic cell. That somatic cell has all the DNA and the information needed to create a whole individual like this Sekalala.
So in other words, to the viewer out there, cloning largely is reproducing me. To have making a copy of me. Oh, so the viewer out there, I think now you get us. Cloning, we are just saying how, if I wanted to reproduce myself, or want to reproduce Mr. Sekalima here, what is the process? Naturally, Allah has already made us, but you want to reproduce a second Sekalala,
some kind of a copy. But we should note that this copy is merely a physical resemblance.
But not the physiological makeup.
If you look at the way the Islamic system defines the human being, there's no way you can copy a human being, because the human being has the part of the body and the part of the soul.
The soul, yes.
Now remember, the soul, no one has any control over it. And you can't have one soul in two bodies. You don't have that kind of arrangement.
Yes, you're
Meaning, even if the scientist may create what resembles Sekalala, in actual sense, for that thing to start being active, it needs a soul.
It needs a soul. So never, it's just a robot in another way.
So in the end, there will be another entity that will occupy that body which you have
and it is remote controlled.
That object that you've created, which resembles Sekalala, cannot begin to work unless there is a soul, and you don't have any control over the soul. To the level that when the Jews were challenging the Prophet ﷺ, they asked him about the soul. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered in Surah Al-Isra, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. What answer did he give them? قُلِ الرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And in the end, those Jews didn't ask any further questions about that soul. And I think they were tricking the Prophet to see whether he would deceive himself that he's giving answers about the soul. Most of them, they were giving him exams, only that he would pass the exams, but still they would not accept the message. So meaning that ruh is only in the hands of Allah.
So in other words, even if we have a super scientist, the best they can do is produce the physical appearance.
They may appear to produce, and even this business of cloning, they only produce one cell, and the cell starts to multiply. Meaning, even still in that area of multiplication, the human beings don't have any control over that.
That's why we sometimes see the is it the cell, there's a way they call it, mutates and then it becomes a very dangerous creature again.
So cloning, therefore, they are simply controlling this initial part of generating this first cell that will multiply.
Yes.
So what appears to be control is that I have some kind of dictation in what will be the materials that will constitute that first cell. So I simply get Sekarara's DNA, so I'm very sure that the creature that is going to be created is 100% Sekarara's DNA. That is what is imagined. But as we shall look at the Islamic scholars, the way they studied that thing, for them they insist that this cell which you are saying you have removed the nucleus, you don't have capacity to extract the entire nucleus 100%.
Just take portions.
Meaning for you, you may deceive yourself that you've removed the nucleus, but you cannot remove all the elements of that nucleus, because some parts of them are simply invisible. You are not going to see them. And in the end, when you bring these cells and you fuse them, claiming that the other one has no nucleus in it, still this one has material of the original nucleus that you worked with.
Wow, thank you very much for that introductory part of the topic. So viewer, we are looking at Islam and science, and we are looking at the aspect of cloning. We have appreciated that cloning is just the artificial way of reproducing what Allah has created naturally. So it could be a human being, it could be the dog, it could be even plants, and to the best. So those of you that watch movies, there are cases where you find 5 people resembling each other in the same place, and then you begin wondering who. We've even told some global leaders also employ the same to beef up their security, right?
Yeah, they get what they call doubles.
So they get doubles and the rest. So we are just looking at that concept of the doubles, what Islam talks about it, and then you as a Muslim, how should you relate when you get across this aspect of cloning? So Mr. Sekalema, we have appreciated cloning. It's just the artificial of trying to reproduce what is natural. Are there cases where maybe you could help us appreciate, apart from the human aspect, which is controversial, like you've noted the scholars have told us, are there acceptable areas where the scientists have given a go-ahead and said, okay, as regards this, we can give a second thought and eye on it?
So the Muslim scholars,
yes, please.
And that committee is the one that gives fatwa on
Islamic issues, yes.
The Islamic QA is a reliable fatwa point. The reason simply being that it's not just one person that is coming up with these ideas. They sit in a committee and they don't just jump up with the fatwa. They sit down, study. If it is a scientific area that has to be determined, they really go deep into explaining the science, and finally they give their verdict. It's a very reliable fatwa point, islamqa.info. Now for them, what they say about this issue of cloning, they're saying that there are areas where this cloning can be useful, and they don't harm, because remember, within the Sharia, all these guidelines that you are seeing, they are meant to achieve what we call the Maqasidi Sharia. There are 5 principles, of which protection of life, another one is protection of lineage.
Lineage, yes.
So we don't play around with the issue of lineage. Once we are looking at lineage, we simply don't play around.
Human race, especially.
So therefore, for them, when they are making their conclusion regarding this issue, they say cloning is number 1, a technology that Allah has enabled human beings to master. The human beings are not the ones that teach themselves.
It is Allah who teaches.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches the human beings how to manipulate these very microscopic elements and to come up with live things.
Okay.
So therefore, we don't think that the human being is actually creating something new, because they're just manipulating materials that Allah has already had. Just like we manipulate plants.
Yes.
For example, you could get a mango, you fuse it with an orange, and you get some new. You are not really creating a new fruit. So you can't boast and claim that you have now gone to the level where you are creating. You are simply mixing up these materials, and in some cases you don't even know what will come out. But you are doing the mixing. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala guides us in all these endeavors of knowledge, and in the end we are able to come up with something useful.
So the beneficial,
so for as long
areas of cloning,
you are not interrupting any of the maqasid sharia,
life, lineage.
Your cloning is not endangering human life. Your cloning is not distorting lineage.
Yes.
Then in that case they permit it, and therefore the very first fatwa that they passed, human cloning, they removed that one. They are insisting
so there is no room for human
serve
cloning.
any purpose, which does not break the maqasid sharia. But in other animals, they say, yes, it is in some cases actually very useful. For example, you are doing research and you need very many rats in order to do the experimentation, because rats have bodies that resemble in terms of behavior the human body. So before they bring medical material, medicines and etc. to test with the human beings, they tend to run very many tests on the rat's body, because for it can be utilized for that purpose. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, by the way, has given us permission to kill some of these animals for the good of humanity. That's why he tells us huwa alladhi khalaqa lakum ma fil ardi jamia. So those creatures, because you may find the animal rights people looking at it in terms of these animals also have rights to life. Yes, they have rights to life, but Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has created their life to serve this human being, so that he completes his mandate on earth and has to go for accountability. So meaning, if I slaughter a cow and I eat it, I'm not terrorizing the cow. The cow is essentially serving its purpose as a food for me, and it is not a problem.
Yes,
so therefore, if we can use cloning to generate lab rats that can help us in medical research, or if we can even use it for animals like goats, cows, etc. All those other areas, the scholars have no problem, because in that cases you are not antagonizing.
So in others, lab work, lab related work,
there is no problem.
There's no problem.
And remember, we have insisted that although the human being may participate in generating of this physical thing that resembles the initial copy, we still know that every creature that walks this earth has a soul that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala only has control over. So you may have a creature that resembles the original one that you are cloning, but in actual sense, that thing cannot start moving except if Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala breathes a soul into it, and that is the only way it can start to move. So that soul, you have not control over it. So you cannot copy a whole human being. It is not possible. You may have something that resembles your original copy, but in actual sense, it is not a 100% copy of this human being.
Mashallah. So, thank you very much, Mr. Sekalema. Dear viewer, we are looking at Islam and science, and the show that comes to every Monday is Alhidaadayah show, where we are looking at the aspect of cloning that we have noted and appreciated from our guest, that it is just simply artificially reproducing what Allah has made natural for us. He has guided us that the Islamic scholars have ruled through research, scientific discoveries, that anything to do with disorienting and tampering with the human lineage, human nature, makes cloning squarely haram as regards human beings. So you are not expected at any single point to make a clone of a human being. But he has also guided us that the scholars have noted that because Allah created the different creatures at our disposal to help us in our daily errands and fulfillment of our obligations to Allah, they have given us, Allah has given us permission to do some changes or studies on some creatures. He has given an example of the rats, that for them we can clone them such that maybe they can be used in the laboratories to run different tests, because instead of harming or making experiments on 100 rats, you could get one clone, make a clone of them, and then use them for the lab study work. Thank you very much, Mr. Sekalema, for that wonderful insight. As we are tending towards the end of the show, there is something that I wanted us to help appreciate, and that is that to look at cloning in plants. Is it also an area that is acceptable? Mangoes, let we hear terms like genetically modified organisms and plants, something like that.
Now you realize that genetic modification is cloning, okay, but for it involves now combining more than one thing, and I think that's what I needed also to talk about.
Okay.
Now for military purposes,
okay,
human beings have gone ahead to start distorting our natural structure. So in this cell here that they come to multiply,
yes, please,
they sometimes add their other non-human elements. For example, a person may say, these bats have certain features that we human beings don't have. But these features give them some kind of superiority. They are able to maybe move at night and
yes.
So if I can get some bat DNA and I fuse it with this human DNA and I clone an animal out of it, can't I get some human being that is having additional features that are different from human beings? Meaning,
yes.
For example, if cats can hear to an extreme level, some leopards can hear even like 100, 200 meters of very small sound.
Okay.
So if I want a human being to acquire some very advanced hearing, what if I pick some DNA from a leopard and I combine it with some DNA of a human being?
Yes, please.
Then I move ahead. So that is the schematic for cloning. Sometimes they pick cells from multiple animals. So imagine they reach the level of mixing human DNA with the DNA of other animals that are not human beings. Now for them, what they don't realize is that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala creates everything perfectly. Meaning the DNA that He has given to the human being is also attached to the body that is going to be managing that DNA. You see these computers here?
Yes, please.
This computer is a Mac. For me to connect a printer to it, it does not just work automatically. The printer has to communicate with this piece of thing here using what we call drivers.
Okay.
Meaning, should I pick a printer and this computer does not have drivers for that printer, the two objects will just look at one another. They cannot communicate.
Yes.
So this business of picking DNA from another animal,
from a tiger,
then you
combining it with
the human DNA, and you think that you are going to create a superior creature merely because there are some attributes that you've seen. That kind of reasoning is not permissible because you have no control over what you are going to be creating. That object that you are going to be creating, you have no control over it, and in some cases it has arisen into very dangerous and weird creatures that are not human because they've simply combined the two materials.
Okay.
And the result is a creature that is not a human being and is not any of the other things that they are using, and it becomes a very big problem. So those are things that we need to ethically avoid. We concentrate on cloning by not mixing up DNA of multiple animals, maintain the animal, and we simply use cloning as an advantage in terms of multiplication, but not in terms of, again, distorting what Allah has already created. Because among the things that Allah has mentioned about what shaitan does for the human being, that is surah, which surah here, where I've seen an ayah
Surah Al-Masah, I guess,
where it talks about shaitan convincing human beings to change what Allah has created. Of course, human beings also have been doing some manipulations, plastic surgery and the others, but those ones are just cutting the body around. But these ones that reach the level of antagonizing something as small as DNA, this one is now a very radical level that we should not be promoting. But ultimately, anything that can help us to generate animals for for human usage,
yes.
in an
Research,
artificial way like that, it should be something that has no problem. But we avoid cloning human beings because we have a lineage problem that we need to protect.
Yes.
And you cannot begin to antagonize that issue of lineage, as it were.
Wow.
And we have also indicated very clearly that although you may physically produce what resembles the original human being, this is not possible to create a full human being, because the human being has the hardware, which is the physical body, and the soul, and there's no way you can be able to claim to have produced a whole human being when you have no control over the soul.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Sekalema, for sharing with us an insight and explanation of cloning as a concept. You have hinted that genetic modification is a different subject altogether. Yes. I think which, if we get time in the future shows, shall look at it. But for plants,
usually they do it. There's no problem in case it does not harm. Because remember, among the Makasudi Sharia is protection of
because
life.
There are cases where you see they graft an orange with a mango, but I think that one has no problem.
That has no problem because the result is a hybrid of the two fruits. In some cases, the seeds that were there in the orange disappear and you get some big orange. Usually the results are good.
Yes.
And for as long as it does not generate a fruit that is dangerous for human life, all those are things that Allah has given us a chance to experiment with and manipulate, but we have to first guarantee that it is not causing any harm before we can give it the human beings to eat. And these are things that we can do. Otherwise, if you fuse them and it results into some poisonous fruit or anything that has some negative influence, in that case we stop it, because we have a responsibility to protect life as one of the Makasudi Sharia.
Thank you very much. Dear viewer, we want to thank you for making it a part of the show. This show comes every Monday from 3 to 4 o'clock. We are looking at today largely the aspect of cloning, and we have appreciated that in the Sharia, any scientific related kind of work is not prohibited from the outset. We subject it to tests like, does it cause harm to human nature, does it affect lineage, and many other factors. Now, based on that, our guest has guided us that anything to do with cloning human beings is prohibited in Islam, because it has the impact of affecting the lineage. Because in Islam, anything to do with lineage has got so many implications as we go further into the Sharia guidance. But as for purposes of scientific research, driving human benefit out of the different creatures there are in the world, then the Sharia can give you a window for you to do the different research and then do the cloning aspect of it. So, Mr. Sekalema, as we are winding up in 2 minutes, what should be your final message for the Muslim out there generally, based on the information we have just shared in 2 minutes, and then we wind up the show?
Now, for the Muslim out there, we are covering these controversial technologies because there are things that do exist in the world today, and we need to have positions as Muslims. Because for us, unlike some of the other faiths, we are bound by the Sharia in everything that we do.
No.
You wake up in the morning, the Sharia will govern you until you go back into that bed at night. There's no second anywhere that will give you freedom to behave the way you are. When we see this technology, we need to control it, because in any case, once this technology goes into the hands of people that don't have any moral fabric and have no control, it becomes a problem. For example, one may begin to investigate how we can get to create creatures that are, for example, I can combine snake DNA and I combine it with maybe some other creature like a crocodile, and I get some hybrid animal that can help me maybe for purposes of attacking other people. Because for military purposes, the objective is to kill the enemy. They have no limit. But for us as Muslims, we have certain minimums and maximums that we go to. And this cloning is just one of those controversial technologies. We shall look at others, technologies that do exist and they have benefits and some dangers. And our job is to simply tell the Muslim these technologies do exist, look at them, study them, possibly participate in them, especially for those who work in the research centers, participate in them, but remember that you are a Muslim and you are bound by
have
some
to
guidelines. And for as long as the technology is beneficial for human life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a go-ahead. We have no limit on how we experiment, for as long as we don't injure human beings, we don't affect lineage, we don't affect our deen, and many of the others that fall under the Maqasid Sharia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sekalema Hamza, for making time to come and share with us the aspect of cloning as one of the topics we have in Islam and science. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards you for the time, and then to our viewers, we also want to thank you for sacrificing your time and resources, because some people are explaining data, others using electricity. We know that it's one of the overhead costs that normally we don't pay attention to, but we thank you very much for being wonderful viewers. We want to remind you that this show can always be got as a recap on the Salam TV YouTube page and the Facebook pages. You can always check it out and then try to make a recap of the same. To the scientists out there, our guest has guided us that it is our duty to participate, but as a Muslim, please be confident enough and try to present the Islamic perspective. One time one of the scientists told me they went for an international conference and they were debating on how to add pig fat into these preservatives, and he told them, guys, we are serving an international audience, and therefore there's a category of people you're not going to subject these products to, and then they had to listen to him. So it is the duty of everyone out there to know that in Islam, whatever effort you make to promote the religion of Allah is welcome, and Allah is very much willing to reward you for the efforts. So scientists, this is your domain. It is the part for you to also to make rewards. Allah will reward you if you educated people concerning these controversial aspects. Thank you very much for making it a part of the show. We shall be meeting again next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Eno ye Salam TV.